Hey guys, so just an update. This week has been extended to be a part of phase 2. Still not really sure what phase 3 is going to end up looking like, but we were told this past week that phase 2 was going to be extended, so we're just going to keep on trucking through this week just like nothing has changed, because nothing has really changed. I have changed and updated the remote learning packet for you guys. It's uploaded and pinned like the first post that y'all see on Edmodo. So if you scroll down, you'll see week 4, which is this week. So this week we are going to start on our pocket pets unit. And the pocket pet unit is, I'll be honest, it's a little on the long side, just because there's so many pocket pets that we're going to end up talking about. Some of them, there's a ton of information, like today's lesson, strictly on rabbits, because y'all have no idea how many rabbit breeds there are out there. And then others are going to be really short. We're going to have like a few slides here on mice and a few slides here on rats. It'll just kind of depend. We're going to take it day by day. But today's lesson is going to focus on rabbits, and we're going to go over breeds. We're going to go over uses for rabbits, and we're going to go over some common diseases that rabbits can get. And we're just going to knock it all out in one day. So moving to the PowerPoint, the new PowerPoint and notes, if you're using the notes, that's fine. If you're not, cool. The PowerPoint notes should be uploaded on Edmodo now. So the first thing is that rabbits are, they have breeds, but they're also categorized into weight classes. So think about like when we talked about dogs, and we had the sporting group and the non-sporting group and the hound group. And then we had all these other breeds that fit into those groups based on, were they a hound? What were they used for? Were they put in the sporting group? Were they put in the toy group? Rabbits have a similar grouping system, except theirs isn't quite so like nitpicky. Theirs is based on weight. So the 5 classes are, the first one is dwarf or miniature, being the smallest. Small, medium, large, giant. Honestly, pretty straightforward. And then these are some of the breeds that would fit into those groups: the Himalayan, the Dutch, the English spot, the New Zealand, the giant Angora. Most rabbits are going to be fitting somewhere in the small and medium groups. There's not a ton of of the dwarf breeds. There's like maybe 2 or 3 in the giant group. Most of them are going to be in the medium spot. So we are going to start with the dwarf or the miniature group. These are little tiny rabbits, a couple of pounds, and the first one is the Britannia Petite. Petite, so it should be easy for you to remember, because petite literally means very small. So it's going to go in the dwarf or the miniature group. It's an old breed it's an old English breed. They're recognized as being like the smallest rabbit of all the domesticated breeds. And the way that you kind of tell them apart is, one, by how small they are, and then they're white, and they have red eyes. So they're like albinos, basically. Then we've got the Netherland Dwarf. Once again, dwarf. So you should be able to kind of figure out like where this rabbit breed belongs. The Netherland Dwarf, it originated in Holland, and so over in Europe, and it does come in a few colors along the scale of browns. They're small, they're kind of stocky, compact. So whereas when we look at the Britannia Petite, it's kind of like this long rabbit. When you look at the Netherland Dwarf, they're kind of like this little ball. If you've ever seen like a baby cottontail, the Netherland Dwarfs remind me a lot of them, where they're literally just like this little ball. They're not long, they're pretty round and cute. The Himalayan is another dwarf or miniature rabbit. This This picture doesn't make them look near as small as the other ones, but they are still in the dwarf or the miniature group. And they're one of the oldest breeds that you can find, and they have, like, they're you can find them as a pet just about anywhere. When they're young, they're white, and they might have like this little bit of like silvery gray to them. And then the older they get, their points, so their nose, their ears, and their feet and their tail end up getting darker. Moving into the small group, the first one we have is the Dutch. So another rabbit breed from Holland. It was further developed in England. So it originated in Holland. It started, they were like, oh, what a cute little rabbit. It's got on pants. And then they took it over to England and they were like, we like this rabbit with pants. We're going to make sure all of these rabbits have pants. And so it was further developed over in England. They also kind of have this little like mask where it covers their eyes and then it goes up to their ears, where they've got like this split going up their face. That white split is actually called a blaze, and it just goes over their forehead and down their nose. And then it ends up growing to their chest and their back. The rear half is black, and then they've got these cute little white feet. So just look for the rabbit in a mask and pants. The tan rabbit, bet you can't guess where they got that name. The tan rabbit, they were originally black with just a tan underside. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but they are darker along the back, and then the closer you get to the front of them, like to their underside, it turns into this brown color. You'll find the tan color primarily like around their eyes, their nose, definitely in their toes, but they're kind of like this little ombre rabbit, where they start out dark, and then the further you move from their back to their front, they start lightening up a bit. The Florida white, once again, bet you can't guess where they got this name or where they came from. They did develop in Florida, and it ended up being a crossbreed, as most breeds are, where they crossed the Dutch, the Polish, which we haven't gotten to yet, and the New Zealand white, which we also haven't gotten to yet. And they ended up getting this white rabbit with the red eyes, but it's slightly bigger than the Dutch is. And they're not really too commonly kept as pets. Most people, they get kind of freaked out by the albino look of animals, so they don't really want to keep them as pets. They want like a cute, like multicolored rabbit, or like basically one that's not white with creepy red eyes. So the Florida white, you're gonna see it either as a meat rabbit, because yes, people do eat rabbit meat, or as a laboratory rabbit to have studies done on it. The English spot, bet you can't tell me who this looks like. The English spot was introduced from England. It was brought over to the US. People really liked it because it's got like all these unique little markings. It's almost kind of speckled or spotted, that run from the base of its ear all the way down to its side or to its flank. The spots are all very unique. Like, you're never going to find a rabbit that has exactly the same spots. Just like you're never going to find a Dalmatian with the exact same setting of spots. Oh, whoops. And my bad. Good. I'm glad I just picked this up. The English spot is the first one of the rabbits that we're going to go over that's in the medium classification. The standard chinchilla, it's not a chinchilla, so if y'all ever see school net questions on it, the standard chinchilla is not actually a chinchilla. Standard chinchilla was named because this rabbit has the same coloration, the same like kind of like grayish blue color as the chinchilla. So the standard chinchilla is a breed of rabbit. And they're basically just named for this like speckled, I don't want to call it speckled, but this like, I don't even know what the word is, but this mixing of like gray and white. So that like the outside of their coat looks gray, but when you look closer in, you see these white flecks blending in to give it this light gray or this chinchilla kind of coloration. The English Angora, yes, y'all look at this rabbit. This thing's not actually a dust bunny. It looks like a dust bunny, and you know, looking at this, I can see why it's called a dust bunny. The English Angora is named because its hair is more similar to wool. Angora is a type of wool. So this rabbit looks a lot bigger than it actually is. It actually has like a nice little like compact, tiny little body, but its body is so covered in wool that you can't really see it. Like this is its face. So this rabbit, they're not really kept as pets. They will be a cool pet, but imagine like having to try to shave your rabbit. We all know salt and poo-poo, and neither of them would stand for someone trying to shave them. So the English Angora rabbits, they're kept for their wool production, not really as pets because they're going to be high maintenance. Like they're going to get hot, they're going to get pee and poop all over them. You're going to have to shave them. They're going to need a huge cage. Like it's a lot. So they're not really kept commonly as pets. The Belgian hare. A hare is commonly called like a wild rabbit. So the Belgian hare, even though it is domesticated, the reason it's called a hare is like the story of the tortoise and the hare, or the tortoise and the rabbit. A hare was really, really fast. But it got distracted, it lost to the turtle, so on and so forth. But a hare is thought of as a fast rabbit. So the Belgian hare, it originated in Belgium, but it's like a rabbit used for racing because, I mean, why not? Why not try to race rabbits? This rabbit is commonly called like the racehorse or the greyhound of rabbits because y'all remember when we talked about greyhounds, we talked about how like they're really common, or they were really common in racing like down in Florida. Before it was thankfully outlawed because they weren't kept in the best of conditions. The Belgian hare, they're skinny, they are pretty well muscled, and they're basically just known for being very fast. So a hare is a fast rabbit. The Belgian hare is a very fast rabbit that originated in Belgium. The Rhinelander, this rabbit's also looking kind of familiar. The Rhinelander, they have this butterfly marking on the nose, and you'll see like little cheek spots. You're going to see eye rings on them. Then the rest of their body is going to be white, and they have this kind of like they're broken stripes almost running down its back and its neck. This rabbit always kind of reminds me a little bit of Salt. I don't know what breed Salt or Fufu are. I can only guess. But when I look at the Rhinelander, I do think a lot of Salt and his coloration, his size, his patterning. If I had to guess, I would say that Salt is probably a Rhinelander, but you know, I can't really say because I don't know. Continuing in the medium rabbit size class, you have the Rex. The Rex, they're pretty common as pets. They have short hair. They're very, very like soft and plushy. They like being cuddled. So people do commonly keep them as pets, and they are a little bit on the smaller side of that medium scale. But kids love them, people love them because of their soft under fur. Moving on into the large classification, our first one up is the Californian. The Californian is a cross between the Himalayan and the Chinchilla. And then they took that cross and they crossed it with a white New Zealand, so that we end up getting this mostly white rabbit. You'll see this like grayish black coloring over their ears, on their feet, their tail, which you can't really see, their nose, and then you're gonna see their red eyes that they get from the Himalayan. Nothing super special about them, honestly. Just another crossbreed, but they do get pretty big. Then we got the cinnamon, named for its cinnamony color. They're a pretty like average length, medium length, so they're not like super long. Like think about like the Belgian Hare. That was like a long, skinny rabbit. Or the dwarf, where it's kind of like this, the Netherland Dwarf, where it's just tiny little compact. The cinnamon rabbit, they've got like a pretty like average length. They're not super skinny. They do pretty good as like meat rabbits because they pretty easily put on weight and they fill it out really well. Because nobody, if you're gonna eat a rabbit, nobody wants a skinny rabbit. They're kind of this like rusty cinnamon color. They may be a little bit darker, closer to their points, like their feet, their ears, and their nose. But primarily their body is going to be this like reddish, brownish kind of color. And they're going to be a little bit on the plumper side. The Amerighen Rabbit, this is like a show rabbit because of like how perfectly pristine white it is. It's a big rabbit. And it doesn't have these scary red eyes that kind of upset people. Nothing super special about the rabbit. They say that the ideal body type, because again, it's a show rabbit, meaning they're going to have standards for it. The ideal body type is a mandolin, because of the arch in its back goes down from its head and then its back comes back up. Most rabbits I feel like actually have this body type, but what do I know, y'all? I don't deal with show rabbits. This is one of my favorite ones just because the ears are so cute. So anytime you see a rabbit with these floppy ears, you know that they're gonna be some kind of lop. The lop refers to the lop ears. This is the English lop. They're a pretty old domestic rabbit because people love the ears. When they saw the floppy ears, they're like, this is something we want to keep around. Their ears get very long though. 2 feet kind of long is pretty common. Like, I couldn't even imagine. But I mean, I guess it's just a good example of people breeding things into animals that, while it's probably not the best thing for the rabbit, but people like it. This rabbit probably started off with ears that were just floppy, and then they continued breeding them until they got them to this really long length. They do have like, they are still considered a large rabbit, so they're pretty big. But because their ears are so big, they have what's called a low head carriage, meaning instead of their head like being up and then kind of looking around, they kind of stick their head down and look around like this because their ears are big. They may be skinny, they may be floppy, but they're still pretty heavy. So the rabbit has to keep its head kind of down and look around like that. You're not too often going to see this rabbit like stand up, kind of how our rabbits do, and like look around and try to figure things out. Like, this rabbit's going to stay low to the ground because of how big its ears are. They may not move around too much because they're going to be stepping on their ears a lot. It's not the best thing for the rabbit, but I see where it came from because it is pretty cute. All right, so the New Zealand, this rabbit is pretty common for crossbreeding. It's just a larger version of the other rabbits that we've seen. This rabbit is most commonly going to be used for meat production because they're a large size rabbit. They're very well filled out. And just like when we talked about poultry and we talked about chickens and Animal Science 1, the reason that the white leghorns or the white chickens are the ones most commonly used for meat production is because when you pluck them, if you miss a feather, it's harder for you to see that little white feather than it is for you to see like a red or a black feather. Same deal here. When this rabbit gets skinned, if you miss a couple hairs or a couple hairs stick to it and you send it off, you're not as likely to see the white hair as you would be to see like the red or the black or the checkered hairs that other rabbits have. The silver fox, this rabbit always reminds me of like an Easter bunny because it's just like, it's so pristine and pretty. The silver fox was developed in Ohio. It was given its name because it has this like shiny gray hair. Yeah, basically that's it. Cute rabbit, large size, gray, shiny hair. So it was named the silver fox. All right, getting into the giant ones. These rabbits are like outlandish, y'all. First one up is the giant Angora. So this is another rabbit that produces wool or Angora hair. It's basically strictly bred for wool production. Because of how big it is, the bigger the body, the larger the surface area for it to be able to grow hair that can be sold. Basically it for the giant Angora. It's just a really big, hairy rabbit used for wool production. The French lop, you can see these fallop ears. So you know it's a lop. This is the French lop. Its ears are not near as long as the English lop. Its ears are maybe like 6 inches long compared to the English lop's ears, who are like 24 inches long. It's still pretty big. It's just a really big rabbit that's pretty cute with floppy ears. And the Flemish Giant. This breed originated in Belgium. A lot of rabbit breeds are originating over in Belgium. They obviously love their rabbits. This is the largest of the domestic rabbit breeds, weighing in commonly like 22 pounds. That's a huge rabbit. There was a PBS special maybe a week or so ago that discussed the breeding of Flemish Giants, and like they're not really super commonly kept as pets. Giant rabbits aren't commonly kept as pets because of how big they are. Like you can't put these rabbits in a cage. This rabbit is bigger than some dogs. So if you have a giant rabbit, then this is a rabbit that's gonna have to like hop around on its own. It's like having a dog or a cat, except it's a rabbit. The good thing about rabbits is that you can like litter box train them. It's not super easy, but if you're gonna get one as a pet, if you're gonna get a giant, it's probably something you're gonna wanna have to do, because you're not getting a cage big enough for this animal. You're gonna have to get like a dog kennel if you wanna try to cage this animal. So uses for rabbits, you can use them as pets, obviously. You can also use them for meat production. Rabbits aren't super common, like it's not something that you're really gonna see a whole lot in stores, but it may be something that you can see in like butcher areas, maybe. The New Zealand is gonna be the most common one because one, it's like high in protein, low in all the other stuff, low in cholesterol, fat, sodium. It has a good taste. Rabbits have a very gamey taste, meaning you can kind of taste the food that they eat. So the food that rabbits eat or the food that animals eat affects the way that they taste. But they don't have a very gamey taste, meaning they have kind of this like, it tastes a lot like some other meats. You don't eat it and you're like, ooh, what is that? You can season it, the seasoning will stick, and it doesn't have this kind of like bitey aftertaste that a lot of people associate with gamey foods. We use the New Zealand white also because of the white hair. You're not gonna see the white hairs if somebody misses a few. And rabbits are also used for laboratory research. if you're using them for laboratory research, you're gonna want smaller rabbits, like the Florida White. Ooh, there's a bug on me. The Florida White, it's small, so it's not gonna eat a lot. It's not gonna take up a lot of space. And if you're using them for like skin irritation tests or vaccines or things like that, the smaller the rabbit, the smaller the dose. So the Florida White's gonna be a pretty common rabbit that you can end up using. You can also use rabbits for their wool or for their hair. If you want like a rabbit fur coat, which is the thing that you can buy, typically the giant Angora is going to be the one, because the bigger the rabbit, the more surface area to grow wool. Most rabbits aren't really going to be used a whole lot for wool. Some rabbits have this like satiny kind of hair, and it is actually a mutation, as most things are, where the fur is smaller, like it's a lot finer, and it has this transparent outer shell to the hair so that it gives off this sheen. It's not super common. It would be something that you would have to like try to breed into the animal if you're trying to breed like satin rabbit fur. It's not going to be something you stumble into. It's something that you're going to have to sit here and you're going to have to breed for. A lot of people, if they're going to have a wool coat, a lot of times they would rather have a rabbit coat, but it's not near as common because sheep's wool, it's kind of scratchy. It's not really like the best thing. Like I have wool socks because they keep my feet warm. Like that's their job. But they are kind of itchy. They are kind of scratchy. Rabbit wool is going to be a lot softer because it's so much finer. It's lighter. It'll actually like keep you warmer, and because it's not as scratchy, it's not going to irritate your skin as much. So, we already talked about pets. We already talked about the fact that you can litter box train them. They make pretty good pets. They don't require a ton of like special care, and they are pretty gentle, lovable pets. I would recommend a rabbit as a pet because I love Salt, I love Fufu. The thing is just like they do pee and poop a lot, and that's probably the downside of having a rabbit as a pet, is that they do pee and they do poop a lot, and that the males do tend to try to like mark their territory. They don't always make it in the cage. Salt does not always pee in the cage. Sometimes Salt pees on the wall, and then I have to clean that up. So we're going to go through a few diseases, not a ton. First one is, it's a pretty common cause for rabbits to die. It's called enteritis. If you remember our vocabulary unit with like medical terms, enter with an E means intestines, and then itis means inflammation. So it's literally the intestines are inflamed. Rabbit, it can be caused by like bacteria, infections. It can be caused by parasites. You'll end up seeing, because it's in the intestines, you're going to end up seeing some feces that are stained with blood. It does have like, there's no treating it. There isn't really anything you can do because a lot of times you don't really catch it until it's too late. Snuffles isn't it's not a disease that's going to kill your rabbit. You do want to try to prevent it though, because it's brought on typically by like stressful conditions. That could be, excuse me, it can be like the temperature isn't adequate, because it's kind of like a cold, like sniffling and sneezing. It can be brought on by like stress. It can be brought on by improper temperatures, like bad ventilation. Rabbits don't like a whole lot of like moving air. They prefer kind of like a steady environment. They want a room that's like the temperature is regulated, the air is regulated. Because if not, you can end up getting this, they can end up getting snuffles. And it is snuffles, not sniffles. Female animals, female rabbits, they can get mastitis. Mastitis is inflammation of the mammary glands. So if a rabbit has kits or bunnies, proper term is kits. If she has kits, then she can it can be like an infection. It can be like her body's not producing enough milk. Any other kind of like nursing problems. It'll cause the mammary glands to swell up. And typically you're going to see that in the rabbit's nipples, where they're going to be like very irritated. They're going to be swollen. They're going to be red. And what's going to end up happening is because they hurt so much, she's not going to let those babies nurse because it hurts her. So those babies need to be fed like every hour. So it can be an issue. It's something you want to watch for. So rat neck is inflammation of the inner ear. Excuse me. So rat neck is the inflammation of the animal's inner ear. It's an inner ear infection. So what ends up happening is it kind of like throws their equilibrium off, and you're gonna see them kind of like twisting their head, kind of like the swimmer's ear, where if you get water in your ear and it sits in there, you're gonna kind of like do this number to try to get it out. It's called rat neck because they end up twisting their neck and favoring the side where the ear is hurting. So this rabbit right here has the rabbit's left ear that's hurting, and more than likely has an inner ear infection. Typically, if you have an animal that has rat neck, you're also going to see them having snuffles, because a lot of times a cold and an ear infection, they go hand in hand. So if your rabbit has one, more than likely they're going to have the other. They typically go together. Fur chewing. Fur chewing is really similar to a bird's feather plucking, where if they're bored, they're not stimulated, if they have a nutrient deficiency, then they're going to end up pulling their hair out, literally. You want to try to keep them entertained, give them hay, or give them something else to chew on. It could be a toy, it could be hay, it could be like a paper towel roll. Like, give them something so that they can chew on rather than literally chewing on themselves. Hutchburn, you can see that in, typically it's going to be in does or female rabbits, where they literally get like a chap. It's like it gets chapped. You're going to end up seeing it though when their cage isn't clean the way it should be. It could be dirty. It could be like wet. That could be from water. Like maybe their water came loose and completely soaked their bedding. It's happened. Or urine where it's not getting clean. But it's going to be for a prolonged period of time. Where they just kind of sit there and they move around and it gets chapped. Because it was wet, and then all of a sudden you clean out their cage, you're like, oh, you got a nice dry cage now, and then all of a sudden everything is completely dry, and it causes the skin to get chapped. Sore hocks can end up happening to any animal that's kept in a cage that has like wire bottoms, where they're kind of like hopping. And if there's a wire right here, their leg or their foot is going to end up going down in these two little cracks. And it's going to end up causing a little bit of irritation. If they continue hopping around on the wire cage, then it's going to end up going from being like sore to like ulcers. That's why like Coco's cage, it had a wire bottom. Coco's cage always had a ton of paper shavings so that didn't end up happening to her. That's why all of our other animals, they have flat plastic cage bottoms, because we don't want to give them wire floors where more than likely they're going to get sore hops. So what you guys are going to do, I want y'all to pick one rabbit breed, and I'm going to change this. One rabbit breed we did discuss today. Oh, there's another bug on me. Oh my goodness. One rabbit breed that we did discuss today. Describe them. What do they look like? What is their size classification? Coloration. What are they commonly used for? 2 pictures, and then 1 disease that can end up affecting them. And that is what you guys have to do today. So let me know if you have any questions. Join me every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock for Zoom lunch. We can just catch up, hang out. If I miss you guys, let me know what I can do to help you. Hopefully I'll get to see you guys soon, whether that's in person or just on Zoom. Bye, guys.